One of the funnier ones was making large deposits in there, but then not changing the available balance. So it's just like, what are you doing? Like, you're making the deposits look bigger,
right?
But then you look beside and the balance is only, so they're making like a $5,000 deposit, but the balance only went up by $1,000. You're like,
right.
Okay, that's weird. So
So Dave, there's been a lot of fraud talk in the industry. What is the craziest fraud that you've seen lately?
I don't even know if I want to call it crazy, but it's just crazy bad. As mortgage brokers, we're dealing with the general public. We have to get their income documentation.
Yep.
And, the one thing that at least throughout my career, and you don't see it a lot, but you'll see it every once in a while, is you'll have people doctor their own tax documents.
Okay.
Right? So, and it becomes so obvious because you have to understand, every day I see tax documents, right? And when you see a T1 general notice of assessment, it all has like certain fonts that are in it. Like you can actually tell, it's
right.
Okay, that's a font, a certain font. It's a uniform font. So what I always found was funny was my staff would bring me, let's say, a notice of assessment, and I look at the notice, they're like, "Do you see anything weird on here?" And I look at it, and then you look at the name, and the name is in like a whole different font. You know what I mean? And the SIN number is in like a different font or something like that, right?
Right.
It's like, guys, come on. So what they did is they took their buddies or, someone's notice of assessment that had like $100,000 in income.
Right.
And because theirs probably only had much less, they now just type something out, put their name on, and they try to fudge it up or something and make it look good, and they send it to the broker. And I think one of the funniest ones that we ever saw which was I always say it's interesting. It goes to show the level of sophistication of some of these fraudsters is that he changed his name on it, but he must not have changed the SIN number. So imagine we have his SIN number because he's given it to us, and he's now given us a notice of assessment showing this high income. His name doesn't look great on it, but when we look at his SIN number, it's not even his SIN. Like he got lazy. This is like bad fraud. Like this is like embarrassing fraud. Like you forgot to change the SIN number. You know what I mean?
Right.
You see that a lot. I mean, I don't want to say a lot, but like in the times we've seen it, it's usually lazy fraud. And some people that, same thing with their T1 generals. They'll fiddle around with the numbers. The problem is you can, someone who looks at it every day. I mean, I have staff that's all they do all day long is they're looking at documents for banks. You can usually clearly see, a difference in the font or, we had a case.
But that's also because you get the trained eye for it as well, too, because you've been in it for so long. Somebody who's brand new may not be able to pick up on that.
May not catch it. Well, to be fair, I will say this, the banks, like when they have like a rookie underwriter or a rookie, like they call them a fulfillment officer on a file, usually those files have to be looked at by a superior before they've seen X amount of files. Because to your point, if it's someone new at the bank, they might be able to get tricked easily into that fraudulent document. One of the other funnier things was, I think that I've seen was the changing of bank statements, because this is a big thing now. Banks will ask for a lot more bank statements in the past, to prove your pay deposit, or for self-employed people, they want to see like your deposits going in. One of the funnier ones was making large deposits in there, but then not changing the available balance. So it's just like, what are you doing? Like you're making the deposits look bigger,
right?
But then you look beside and the balance is only, so they're making like a $5,000 deposit, but the balance only went up by $1,000. You're like,
right.
Okay, that's weird. So it's funny. I think people think that the bank is this unsophisticated, group of people, and you can get stuff by them. The reality is they're very smart. They've seen a lot of this. They see this stuff every day. Getting that type of fraud, I would say is low-hanging fruit stuff, you know what I mean? But it does run rampant in certain areas of the country. There's statistics out there that show this, that certain areas of our country are actually way more predominantly involved in fraud. And then the other thing, obviously, I think, one of the things we see is always the, like we do a check when we get a client's job letter. We do a check. We'll actually call the job first before we send it to the bank. We'll call the job first just to make sure they work there, right? Because the last thing in the world, I don't want to take something as a mortgage broker from my client. It's a job letter. I send it to the bank, and the bank calls me up and says they don't even work there anymore. I mean, that's a bad reflection of me as a mortgage broker. I'm supposed to be a partner with the bank and providing them good deals. I don't want to
Right.
That's not something I want them to think that I'm being lackadaisical on my files. So a lot of times, and again, I don't want to say a lot of times, but when these instances come up, it's usually the same instance. It's, we'll call the job letter, and and usually it's like, Frankie's hot dogs or something like that. Right away you're like, what Frankie's hot dogs? Never even seen. There's no Google, there's no Google page for it or anything like that. And of course, you call the job letter and it's some guy. You can tell he's driving or something. It's not even an office phone. It's like,
right.
Hey, how you doing? They're like, is this Frankie's hot dogs? And they're like, yeah. Like, does Linda work there making like 45 grand a year? And
right.
Like, oh yeah. He's like, like 45 grand a year. And you're like, how do you pay her? He's like, I just pay her. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay.
Right. So somebody's buddy, friend, whatever.
That
right?
seems to be a big thing. But I mean, it's the fraud we see is interesting. It doesn't seem to take much effort, but maybe that worked 30, 40 years ago. But these days you can't trick these guys.
Yeah.
So.
It'll be interesting to see though what happens in the future now with AI.
Yes.
Because now you've got AI, not only just ChatGPT, but videos.
Yes.
And
it can read PDFs.
Right.
It's insane.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And it can say, hey, clean up this PDF for me in the correct font.
Yeah.
Right. So,
well, you know what? A lot of banks, they were, with respect to fraud years ago, what happened was a couple of the banks that were obviously they were just getting upset with having to deal with fraud. They were actually having clients sign a document that would allow them to confirm with CRA if your income that you were showing on line 150 was indeed the true income on your actual document. So, the fraudsters that were trying to manipulate their taxes to show higher incomes, there were banks that were having that client sign a document that they would know right away if it was fraudulent or not. And the only thing too is like, this is not, some people might think there's no repercussions. If they find my fraud, they just turn me down. They don't give me the money. The difference is they'll blacklist you at these banks. Like they will, if you have an account at the bank, and you get caught they will shut down your bank accounts. They will shut everything down. And not only that, the banks now talk to each other a lot more. Yeah. And they will communicate with each other. Hey, this is not a guy you want to have accounts with. And so doing stuff like that is as much as I'm sure they're trying to do it maybe to help their family or something like that, it has major consequences. Like if you're someone, imagine you do it when you're a single guy and now you get a girlfriend and you have, now she's your wife and you have kids and you got to go open a bank account. You can't get opened at this bank account because this bank blacklisted you like 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like these are not good things that you want to have on your record. Because again, there's only 6 big banks in Canada. And if they're starting to talk now, that's an issue.
Here's the other thing that's very interesting, Dave, is that not only is the fraud now coming from the client, the fraud now is also on the mortgage broker side because of how difficult the market is as well too.
Yeah, well, that's why I say it's funny. The stats. I'm not going to throw out the city because I don't want to. But
we all know.
We all know. There's a particular city here in Ontario that is. We get the stats. So when you go to these mortgage broker conferences, this is some of the things they talk about, and they say this one particular area, the fraud, the rampant. The fraud coming out of this one particular area is high. And it's not just the people, the citizens of the city. It's the mortgage brokers that are in that city as well. They're well known. It's sadly, it's a specific demographic is being targeted for this. And I think that's sad also for those that aren't doing fraud. I mean, imagine, being in that city, being a stand-up person, working with your clients for the last 20 years, and you're being thrown into a mix because a bunch of people in that area are doing fraudulent activities. I mean, it's certainly not helpful. And, but it's also, I mean, look, we don't want banks to take losses on this stuff because that's going to just in the end hurt us more. That means higher prices for you and I, you know what I mean? So fraudulent activity in the mortgage business, although some people say, well, it's soft fraud. It's, they're just trying to get a loan. No one's getting hurt because maybe the bank doesn't lose money. The idea also though, is that particular person who shouldn't have bought that home is getting that home, and someone that could have bought that home isn't now because the person who shouldn't is. Right. So there's a fairness part of that as well, right? So, but we see fraud. It runs rampant in financial service industries, not just mortgages. It's in other, financial planning and insurance. I've heard of stories before back in the day where people that used to do group insurance. So imagine like you were a brokerage that did group insurance. You would get your quote, you'd go and talk to, let's say, a company that has 50 employees and you're like, hey, I'm going to get you a plan for, dental, I had always heard of that these guys could get the quote from, let's say, Manulife and then change it, right, on, so that when they go present it, the numbers look better. And then because as the business owner, he goes, oh, numbers look good. He signs off on it. But then afterwards, let's say one of his employees goes to get their dental and it gets capped out at a certain amount. Well, a lot of times as the employee, you don't really say anything to your employer. You're just like, oh, I guess my benefit's capped out.
Right.
But meanwhile, that broker, he ended up doing that so that the deal could be done. And he didn't tell. He fraudulently, put the numbers lower. So the guy took the bait. But then at the end of the day, the insurance company is still working off their numbers. You know what I mean? So it runs rampant in all different financial service industries, but the banks are getting smarter. And to be fair, I think brokers are getting better at detecting it, because that's another thing. Sometimes the brokers can't detect it. I mean, the only good news is I'm a nerd with this stuff, and I've been looking at this stuff for over 2 decades, and you can kind of see right away when something's off.
And the other thing as well, too, is that, when you're doing this fraud, and you got to be careful, because you're making 40,000 and somebody's documenting or creating these false documents saying you're making 120,000. You can't afford this house.
No. That's
you can't afford this.
Yeah, and people will say, well, but no one's getting hurt because they're gonna have someone come in and like the mortgage is gonna get paid. That was always everybody's saying, well, but the mortgage is gonna get paid. Is it really a bad thing? And it's like, yeah, it's a bad thing because again, you're jumping the line over someone that should get it, and now you're getting it. That's not right. You know what I mean? And not to mention the fact that, let's also be realistic. These people are probably paying someone to make these documents. Well, then now money is flowing into the black market, and that's a whole other, we don't need that. I mean, we have enough problems in this country. So, a little less fraud and a little more, whole deals would be nice.
All right. So. Awesome, Dave. All right.
Beauty.
That's fraud stuff happening in the world of the mortgage business.
Mortgage fraud.
All right. Talk to you soon, brother.